Are you ready for Halloween yet? Well, we think of fairies as harmless, and in truth, most of them are nowadays. Some of the tricks that they can play have come to be malicious indeed. Celtic folklore is filled with these trickster creatures, and if they have any wisdom to give us, it's to stay on the fairies' good side. And since Halloween is just around the corner, now would be a perfect time to construct a little fairy garden for the fairies to stay at. Of course, it also helps that these fairy gardens are aesthetically pleasing at all times of the year. So in this month's Try Your Hand, we will be constructing a little home for the fairies. Let's get started. Like all the other Try Your Hands, we have a kit for you to pick up. The kits will come with a jar, some moss, 1 or 2 mossy boulders, a few stones, a miniature house, a tree or two, a few flowers, and some little animals. You also have some glue to put it together. Like the birdhouse, these kits will have slightly different contents and with different colors. So that means that the sooner you pick up your kit, the more likely it is that you will get your pick out of the bunch. Everything should be provided for you and you will not need any other supplies. With your fairy garden, you can be as creative as you want. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine, especially because each of your kits have slightly different supplies anyway. So I guess you guys are going to have to be creative and unique, whether you like to or not. Anyways, let's proceed. The first thing that I did was to figure out where the seams were on my jar. The reason for that is because I didn't want the seams to be on the face of the terrarium. The next thing that I did was to figure out how I wanted my fairy garden to look. The moss is there to simulate grass, so I put that on the bottom and then put in my boulder to see how I wanted it placed. I knew that I wanted the house to be on top, so I found this relatively flat part on one side of my boulder and figured that I wanted that area to be the top. After that, I finagled the moss around until the boulder was able to stand on the position that I wanted it without me holding it up. After that, I messed around with where I wanted the placement of my tree. Depending on how big or small your tree is, it will probably need to be in different places. Mine was a little on the large side, so I could only put it on the lower part of the boulder. Then I figured out where it would look best with the house on the boulder. When I figured out the placements of those things, I took the boulder out of the jar and then I started to permanently put the house and tree onto my boulder. It will be much easier for you to put in your tree because it has a pointed end. So you can just stick that thing on to your boulder and it holds there pretty well. With the house, it does not have anything for you to stick into the boulder, so we are going to have to use glue. I put the glue on the bottom of the house and then placed it onto the area that I figured out previously. With this glue, it's tacky glue, you do need to keep the house on the boulder and press it down so that the glue will take hold. It does take a little time to dry, so it does kind of move around on you a little bit when you're messing around with the boulder and placing everything that you want on there. After it dries, though, it's perfectly secure. It is now time for you to put the rest of your items on the boulder. I used some of the stones as a sort of stepping stones, so I figured out where I wanted to put those and then glued them on in much the same way that I glued the house. After that, I decided where I wanted to put the flowers. I put the flowers near the house. The stems of these, while they are able to stick into the boulder, are a little flimsy to do it really well. I am struggling to put them down flush to the boulder, and the head of one of my flowers fell off. Perhaps you can use a pair of pliers or something to give you leverage to insert the flowers into the boulder. Otherwise, you can do what I did with the flowers that fell off its stem, and you can just glue the flower on the place that you want them, instead of messing around with sticking the stems into the boulder. After that, you just figure out where you want your little animals and glue them on. Then you can insert the boulder with all the glued things back into your jar. Make sure that you like where everything is, and then you have to glue the moss down. I didn't glue it down here, but off camera I put a little bit of tacky glue at the bottom of my jar and then placed the moss where I wanted it to go. After that, I placed some glue on the bottom of the boulder and then placed it back in the jar. The last touch was to put a little bit of moss on top of the boulder to give it some texture. I had so much fun making the fairy garden this month. I hope you guys did too. One of the bad things about not being able to meet in person is seeing all of your guys' unique creations. Luckily, though, we do have an Instagram and a Facebook page. So if you're feeling up to it, we would really, really, really like to see your projects. So tag us so that we can see them. We would love to see your unique creations. If you're craving more information about fairies, I did make a list of things that you can check out. From fairy gardens to fairy folklore, it's all there. We are in for a treat for the next Try Your Hand because Carol will be hosting in November. She will be teaching us how to make some bath bombs that are sure to leave you refreshed and minty fresh. Remember to sign up for the program so that you don't miss out. Links will be in the description. Or you can sign up for the program on our website. We will see you next time on Try Your Hand.